Good Friday morning to you. I've got some information here I want to share with you about our upcoming grade level meetings for 3rd and through 5th grades, math and reading teachers only. We want to try to determine a location for that, but just for the dates right now, we're looking at 3rd grade teachers meeting on Tuesday, February the 28th from 4 to 5 p.m. 4th grade teachers meeting on Wednesday, March the 1st from 4 to 5 p.m. and 5th grade teachers meeting on Thursday, March the 2nd from 4 to 5 p.m. And there's a typo in that last line there, so overlook that, or maybe red mark it if you want. But based on the consensus, or based on the quorum of folks that responded to this, and right now we have about 9 folks that have responded, but we're looking at having all those meetings at Ridgeview Middle School, possibly in the library, or having the 3rd grade meet at Irvington Elementary, the 4th grade meet at Sand Lake Elementary, and the 5th grade meet at Clintwood Elementary. So whatever the majority of folks choose, that's what we're going to do with this particular meeting. Really, the whole purpose of this is to give you an opportunity to collaborate and talk about some things that you're doing prior to our benchmark test, and also prior to our review and that upcoming SOL test. So just want to give that opportunity for you, because I think we had some positive feedback from activities that we did back in January. So this is just a follow-up to that, particularly in those areas that we're concentrating on in math and reading at our elementary school levels. And in preparation for this meeting, what we're going to do is just give you the questions that we're going to talk about. So our discussions will be centered around these 6 questions that we have here. We can go other areas, but it's basically within that confines of that hour time that we have set up. We're going to talk about these 6 questions. We want you to be able to share a resource that you found was a useful and differentiating instruction for your students. If you have leveled readers or things along those lines, what are you doing to differentiate your instruction? And as you look back at your teaching from last year to this year, particularly as we've used the benchmark test, and how are you teaching differently, and why are you teaching differently, and what results have you gotten from that? I know we've had some discussions with some teachers about a vertical discussion. We'll do that in the future, but right now we're looking more at grade level discussions between those teachers that are math and reading teachers in these defined grade levels that we're talking about right now. How do you do guided reading or small groups in your classroom? What are some activities or resources that you're using to do that? I know there's lots of good ideas out there just to be able to share. At this point in the year, what would you like to know from your peers that would be an affirmation or a request for assistance? Just to be able to ask, what are you doing, or can you tell me if you're doing the same thing I'm doing? And I know that's been beneficial to some that we discussed over after we had those meetings back in January as well. What does your progress monitoring look like for Tier 2 and Tier 3 students in your classes? Now, what information do you have to verify or justify that those students are in Tier 2 and Tier 3? What information are you using, and what assessment results are you using? And how are you using your formative assessment results? Particularly how are you using your benchmark test? What are you doing after the fact? And how are you looking at those results? And just a suggestion, I know most of you are doing this, but just want to make sure you are. As soon as the benchmark tests are over with, it would be beneficial to go back and have your students look at those on your smartboard, or however you want to do that, and go through and see how they were answering those particular questions. So just make sure that they were not making any technical errors, or those silly mistakes that you would make in lining digit ups in a math questions, or just make sure that they're aware of what they're doing and how they're going about doing that. So there's some folks that have also participated in the curriculum team meetings for CIP, so there's some information that would probably be valuable for everybody to hear, so they could share that out. The benchmark window, I want to mention that to you too. We're looking at opening the benchmark window from March the 6th through March the 22nd. Our 9 weeks ends on the 16th, so we've had some requests, particularly from middle school teachers, and I know some of our principals have said that most of you are feel pretty good about your pacing, and you would like to know where your students are at this time. So we'll open it up on March the 6th through March the 22nd. But if you're one of those who have not finished, don't worry about that. This date of the 16th to the 22nd still gives us time to look at that scheduling to get those in, and then we're not so pressed for time to try to get you into your labs. I know some people have talked about trying to use the Chromebooks to do some of their benchmark testing. Some people may not be as comfortable asking their kids to do that. They want to make sure they're doing them in the computer labs where they have done those in the past. But maybe some of the upper grades, or if you've used the Chromebooks with your students and you feel comfortable doing that, that is mainly a decision you would make with your when in school with your principal and the teachers that are involved with that. So there's not a problem with that. And again, these are benchmarks, are formative assessments. Where are we now, and what do we need to do as we review? And I know some of you are have some unique review activities that you use. And again, I just want to emphasize, the relationships you have with your kids are going to determine how well they do. So, if kids believe in you and you believe in them, and you have those expectations for them, they're going to work hard to live up to those expectations. So, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir as far as that's concerned, but particularly, I think in the past you've seen with those students who you have created those relationships with, and you know things about them, and you know what their things that they do well and things that they don't do so well. I think the results that we've had in the past is because of that that's happened. So I want to commend you for that, and I want to appreciate that you're doing that, but make sure you continue to do that. So in cases where you feel kids are not doing as well as they could, spend a few minutes knowing a little bit more about them and find out what it is that they need and how would you go about reaching their needs. So again, just to kind of reiterate this, make sure you fill out your survey as to where we would need to meet, and look at these questions and what you need to do to prepare for those prior to us meeting on those dates that are given there. And if you have questions, you can contact me here at the central office, or you can email me. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. And I do appreciate all your hard work, and I think if we continue to do that, we will continue to progress. And despite all those things else that are going around us, we are moving academically forward. And that's just a sign of strong teachers, and believing in your kids, and kids living up to those expectations you have for them, and also the work of administrators. So thank you for everything that you're doing, and if I don't hear from you, I'll see you on those dates, the 28th, the 1st, and the 2nd. And thank you, and have a very nice weekend.